All right. Welcome. Well, today, this is our cohort presentation. These are the group members. Okay. So health disparities seen in these areas. We have Montgomery County. Two main health disparities are seen here. The first one is home ownership. Only 62% of residents own their home. The national average is 64%. And the second one is food insecurity. 14% of citizens struggle with regularly acquiring food. The national average is 10%. Our dating communities include Westwood and Oakwood. So here they are. That's Oakwood and that's Westwood over there. Westwood demographics, historically red line community, and it has about 4,200 residents located on the west side of Dayton. It's predominantly African American, which is greater than 90% population. Largely uneducated, 5% of residents hold a bachelor's degree. 22% of Westwood High School students drop out. The median household income is $32,013, and the national average is around 69,021. Median home value is also 38,818, almost 200,000 below the national average. Approximately 39% of families live below the poverty level in Westwood. Now, Westwood health disparities, talking about food access, there are no major grocery stores in Westwood. Closest grocery stores are Estridge Grocery and More for Less. Closest major grocery store is Save a Lot, which is around a 39-minute walk for a Westwood resident. 5-minute drive if resident has access to a vehicle. The housing in Westwood also, health disparities. Only 51% of Westwood residents own their home with a median home value of 38,818. More than 30% of homes are vacant. Now, compared to 64% national average in terms of the median home value, which goes around 244,900. Given the low median home value, it is very likely that the housing conditions are poor, which has a high likelihood of negatively affecting health of inhabitants. Westwood culture considerations. So in Westwood, residents largely identify their ethnicity as sub-Saharan African. About 11.2% of people do that, and African. Traditionally complementary and alternative medicine, TCMA, may be the primary way some of these residents meet their health needs and may not trust modern medicine. Although some residents could be quite acclimated to American culture, they could still hold their ethnic values that emphasize alternative medicine. Residents primarily speak English, but 3.4% speak Spanish. Health interpreters may be needed in these situations. Some Westwood stereotypes that do as this. The reason there is poor health in Westwood is partially due to the poor education of their residents. Westwood is not safe. Another one is Westwood is not safe due to the high African American population. Another one is there is a higher drug use rate in Westwood due to the low poverty level.
So now talking a little bit about Oakwood, which is a historically Green Line community of approximately 9,500 residents located south of Dayton. This community is predominantly white. Greater than 90% of the residents are white, and it is largely educated. I know we talked about Westwood, only about 5% of those people have bachelor's degrees. In Oakwood, around 40% have master's degrees. The median household income is over $126,000, and the median home value is much greater than Westwood at $266,000. And only less than 3% of residents live below the poverty level in Oakwood. So when we talked about the health disparities in Montgomery County, we'll look at Oakwood as well. Within Oakwood is a large supermarket, Dorothy Lane Market, which is a high quality grocery store. And it was named one of the 20 best regional supermarket chains of all time by Food and Wine magazine. Here are some pictures of Dorothy Lane Food Market. As you can see, it's a pretty nice establishment with a lot of good, fresh food options. The housing in Oakwood, 82% of the residents in Oakwood own their own home, and the median value is $266,000, which is nearly $200,000 more than the homes in Westwood. And given this value, it's safe to say that the housing conditions are extremely good in Oakwood, which can contribute to better overall health for the residents of Oakwood. Some cultural considerations for the city of Oakwood. About 5% of the residents are foreign born, but it is a primarily residential area with an older white population. Oakwood residents are accustomed to socializing with prototypical high-income individuals, and this could cause difficulties for lower-income individuals to socialize and find help from neighbors. Some stereotypes for residents of Oakwood. It could be considered that Oakwood is safe because there's a low population of minorities. Residents of Oakwood live privileged lives because of the affluence in the city. That's not necessarily true. There's still a 3.7% poverty rate. There's a lack of diversity in culture in Oakwood because most of the residents are white.
Right, and now for our Westwood patients care plan. So some of the social determinants of health that our patient is likely going to have to kind of combat and that we're going to have to combat in their care plan are going to be the grocery stores that they have access to, the pharmacies that they have access to, the type and quality of housing that is kind of in the area, and just the general socioeconomic status of the residents of Westwood. So initially with their transportation, our kind of primary goal is to help them kind of get better access to healthcare and some of the things that they might be kind of battling in their kind of pursuit of having transportation. So if our patient ends up having access to a vehicle, that's great. But if not, we might have to have them kind of walk or bike if they can to the closest pharmacy, Walgreens, or kind of the Save-A-Lot grocery store, which is not ideal. If they're unable to kind of walk or bike, they could also use the Dayton kind of transport system, or if not, they could use Uber or Lyft. That also might be kind of pricey and a bit unrealistic for a patient if they don't have the funds for it. So another resource for our patients could be Mercy's Medical Angels, which does provide non-emergency transport for our patients, and if our patient qualifies. Kind of our next goal is, or our next barrier is the patient's housing situation. So we would definitely kind of take that into consideration as well. We definitely want to make sure that they don't have any contaminants or safety hazards in their house. So we want to make sure that the house structure is integral. There's no carcinogens like lead paint, and there's no other sorts of molds or kind of rust or anything that the patient might be in danger of. And additionally, we want to make sure our patient has consistent housing access, in that they're not kind of bouncing between certain areas that they might not be as comfortable living in, or that they might not feel safe living in. Additionally, we need to kind of address the factors that could really negatively affect our patients' health in their health care. This could also be their access to healthcare. So if our patient is possibly struggling financially, we could recommend that they use goodrx.com. This is just kind of a website that does provide coupons to a lot of like really expensive medications and is a good option for our patient. We would also end up likely prescribing them generic medications instead of name brands to kind of save on cost there. And if our patient does not have insurance, we would definitely want to get them in contact with a social worker to help them get kind of an insurance plan set up through Medicaid, just to help kind of their financial burden with healthcare in general. And finally, for our patient in Westwood, it's really important to consider that their kind of socioeconomic status as a whole is not a very great situation. The median household income is around $40,000, well below the nearly $70,000 national average. And there is definitely a higher rate of unemployment and poverty in the area as a whole.
Okay, so now we're going to be talking about some of the disparities that we're going to find within or some of the patient care plan for Oakwood and how it relates to the disparities that are within that area. Oakwood is historically a white collar community in Dayton, and the current demographic in Oakwood right now is wait. Hold on. All right, so yeah, let me go back. So we previously identified a patient care plan for a lower income community, which we identified as Westwood, but now we're going to contrast it with a patient care plan for a higher income community, which we have identified as Oakwood. And we're going to just simply contrast the social determinants of health that we use for Westwood with Oakwood. So because it's a higher income community, it's quite apparent that their median household income will be much higher, well above six figures. Oakwood is a historically white-collared community in Dayton, and that has its roots from the historical practice of redlining. The current demographic of Oakwood displays the impact of redlining hard on the city of Dayton, and the high socioeconomic status can still have patients struggling to make ends meet. So in regards to transportation, these patients who are from Oakwood likely have very good access to healthy foods, local pharmacies, and healthcare buildings. And most of these locations in Oakwood are walkable, and it's less likely that our patients has access to personal transportation compared to someone in Oakwood. So if our patient is unable to drive or walk, we will recommend using various bus stops located in Oakwood and or Uber/Lyft, again, if financially feasible. In regards to access to healthcare, our patient has access to a CVS pharmacy located in the center of the town, and Kettering Health's main campus is located just a few miles outside of Oakwood, providing a quick access to higher level of care. And for immediate care, there is an urgent care located in the center of the town. So all higher level access to healthcare within a short distance. And finally, access to food. Residents within Oakwood have abundant access to food resources. It's an extensive amount, including the Dixie Food Market, DLM, which is a highly regarded grocery store in the country. And as you can see in this figure, a lot of these grocery stores and food options are within close proximity to each other. So it is much easier to access these resources in this community. So that kind of concludes our presentation, but I kind of quickly wanted to go over some of the sources that we use to gather this information. We found it kind of challenging getting a lot of the demographic information together. And we ended up having to gather data from multiple different databases. As you can see, we have Neighborhood Scout. We also have niche.com, which had some demographics in there. We also pulled some of the information from news sources to help kind of put everything together. When we did get the data for where we tried to separate it from healthy people, we found it kind of challenging to separate it by redlining district, and we ended up having to just do Montgomery County as a whole. And so that's some of the friction we ran into while building this project. And some of the biases that we kind of ran into is that making assumptions that if you live in a green line district versus a red line district, that you're going to have access to more like opportunities and resources.
We know that's not completely true, and it does kind of come down to your social and economic status. And so yeah, that kind of concludes our presentation about these red line districts.